my name is Emma, and this is my video on how COVID-19 has affected our school system. COVID-19 is an infectious respiratory disease caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Symptoms would include fever, shortness of breath, tiredness, and a loss of taste and smell. In 2020, everyone was forced to quarantine because of this infectious virus. Because of this, students had to go online because they were no longer welcome in schools. This change in schooling caused a change in the relationship between students and their academics, parents with their students and with their students' teachers, and with the schools in general and how the teachers felt. Since COVID-19, there have been plenty of studies that have shown the negative effects of online learning on students and schools in general, but I don't think it's receiving the publicity that it should be getting. Our first focal point will be just online learning in general and how it has affected our students. In general, one study shows that students are almost a full year behind in their academics compared to before COVID-19. Reporting shows that we are seeing low testing scores for maths and even lower testing scores for reading. Only 26% of 8th graders are at or above proficiency levels in math. I want to take a second for us to visualize what this actually looks like within a classroom. In my school, I had smaller class sizes, so our classes would typically be around 25 to 30 students, and that's what these dots on the wall show right here. What you're seeing now is how many of those 30 students would be at or above proficiency levels in math. As you can see, that's only 7 of the 30 students. That's not even half of the students in that classroom. Bringing that number up to my graduating class size of 80 students, that means that only 20.8 of those students out of 80 students are proficient at math. The same study showing that only 26% of 8th graders were at or above math proficiency showed that only 32% of 4th graders were at or above proficiency in reading. Using the same sample size of 30 students as with the last example, we can see that only 2 students were added to the list of students who were at or above proficiency levels in reading. Piggybacking off of that last study, we can see that younger students just don't have the language literacy and interpersonal skills that they should be having at this age. As we all know, because we were all students at one point in our lives, school isn't exactly the easiest thing to be going through. Post-COVID-19 students are really showing how they're struggling with school now. A study surveying kids across the world are showing that they have decreased motivation, morale, and attention. This decrease in motivation and morale is shown in their uncompleted work and their dissatisfaction with school. In an interview, an Australian teacher confesses that because school is no longer in person, students are demoralized and are no longer excited by school. 40% of teachers in America confess that they have concerns for their students' mental health with depression, anxiety, and stress. A survey of all 50 states shows that students are really struggling to pay attention since the start of online learning. A study in Spain finds that out of children 3 to 11, the older children had the worst attention spans. 17.6% of parents in China state that they've seen a change in behavior of their children, which is a contributing factor to attention. We all have our days where we just don't want to show up to school, but it is clear that these post-pandemic children really don't want to show up to their classes. Being a chronically absent student means that you're missing 10% or more of days in school. A study finds that in the 2022 to 2023 school year, chronic absenteeism has risen from 15% to 28%. I want to point out this graph right here. This graph shows absenteeism in students across 3 years, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. As we can see, the chronic absenteeism has risen drastically. Furthermore, a study across the 50 states shows that in the 2023-2024 school year, the numbers have increased to 30% of students. This isn't just the students' fault, though. We can see that not everyone has internet access, so it's hard for them to actually get online, which thus means that they no longer want to show up to school because they haven't before. As we can see, though, students aren't the only ones who are struggling after the COVID-19 pandemic. Parental involvement is the key factor to a student's success in their academic life. Parent involvement leads to better attendance and a lifelong love of learning. Not only that, but parental engagement with their student and their learning actually lifts up the student and their abilities. The pandemic stole precious time from parents with their kids, which affected them in the long run. In the 2022 to 2023 school year, only 12 to 18% of parents showed concern in their children's academics. In this graph, we can see that at the beginning of the pandemic, parents were very concerned with their children's academics. But as the pandemic went on, they grew less and less concerned, which is actually the opposite of what they should be feeling. The relationship between parents and their students is not the only relationship that has been affected during the COVID-19 pandemic. A superintendent revealed that while it's easier to contact parents because things have gone online, there is now a disconnect between the teachers and their parents. Furthermore, parents just have their own personal assumptions about school, so when the teachers are talking, the parents just don't listen. This change in students and parents have really impacted the teachers. A survey of Canadian school districts shows that teachers are very concerned for their own well-being, with mental health being their top concern. A third of those teachers from the same exact study admit that they're considering leaving the school district or just retiring altogether because they know that their own personal mental health affects the learning of their students. 23% of teachers in America either left their school or their job in the 2022-2023 school year. This graph here shows the teacher turnover rate in America between the years 2019 and 2023. As we can see, the turnover rate is pretty high, which isn't a good sign for schools. The teachers who have stayed in their job or school have seen an impact on their own curriculum. Because school had to go online, teachers had to make their curriculums online accessible, which means that they had to cut down their curriculum in order to fit all the important lessons into the curriculum. We're seeing a decrease in quality as well, as a report shows that teachers just are giving out less work, don't care as much about late assignments, or are letting students retake tests. Students in Poland find that there's a lack of feedback on their work and that there's a lack of parameters on the quality of their work they're supposed to be turning in. This isn't just the teacher's fault though, because only 20% of pandemic funding was supposed to go towards learning loss. It's clear that despite what parents think, learning loss is a huge problem across the world due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Students are lacking the motivation, morale, or attention to even care about school anymore. This lack of care is highly contributing to the learning loss. It's also a huge motivator for students to skip school. These factors have stemmed from learning being moved to online. Parents really need to get involved because as we can see, their involvement and engagement has a really big impact on their students' academics. We really need to start putting some effort into our teachers as well and taking care of them as they take care of our students, because as we can see, if teachers keep leaving their schools and their districts and their jobs entirely, I think our learning loss is just going to continue to rise. Not only this, but we need to encourage our school districts to support our teachers because the quality of our learning is just going down. And if this keeps going down, then our learning loss is just going to continue to rise. Students are the future of our world, and if their learning just continues to decline, then our future is looking dimmer and dimmer every day. Your future teachers and your future doctors and policymakers and lawyers and construction workers, and if they don't know what they're doing, then I don't think we have a bright future. I really hope that I've educated you well on COVID-19's impact on learning in our world, and I hope that you feel compelled to try and do something about it, whether sharing this information or going to your local government. If we take action today, we can combat this learning loss and get back those years that we've lost. We need to do this because bright students equals a bright future. Thank you for watching my video on how COVID-19 has affected our schools. I hope that you've learned something from it and that you feel compelled to become an active member of both your government and your school.